Sir, there are some things I should tell you. About the land, the people of Imesi-Ile, they have traditional beliefs about the hill. Specifically, about why...
Femi, sir, do you know how many pieces of land I have purchased in 32 years?
No, sir.
47. Do you know how many of them came with traditional beliefs? 47. Every piece of land in Nigeria comes with a story. The story is always told by the people who could not afford to keep the land. The story is always about why a stranger should not have it. That is what stories are for. They are the currency of people who have no other currency. Your commission will be processed today. If there are legal objections from the community, tell them to contact the Ministry of Lands.
Femi had prepared what he was going to say. He had written it down, actually, in a small notebook he kept for client meetings. 3 bullet points, carefully worded, professional enough to survive the conversation, specific enough to actually communicate the thing that needed to be communicated. He never got to say them. Chief Adenuga arrived at the Ikoyi office for the signing at exactly 10 a.m., which meant Femi had been waiting since 9:15, which meant he had spent 45 minutes sitting with his 3 bullet points and his commission and the specific anxiety of a young man who needs the money and also does not want what he is afraid might follow the money. The signing took 11 minutes. Chief Adenuga did not read the full document. He had his lawyer read it. He signed where he was told to sign. He closed the folder. He stood up. "Sir," Femi said, "there are some things I should tell you. About the land." Chief Adenuga looked at him, the look of a man checking his watch without checking his watch. The community, the people of Imesi-Ile, they have, Femi looked at his notebook. There are traditional beliefs. About the hill, specifically. About why it has not. Femi, "Sir, do you know how many pieces of land I have purchased in 32 years? No, sir. 47. Do you know how many of them came with traditional beliefs? Femi did not answer. 47, Chief Adenuga said. Every piece of land in Nigeria comes with a story. The story is always told by the people who could not afford to keep the land. The story is always about why a stranger should not have it. That is what stories are for. They're the currency of people who have no other currency. He picked up his briefcase. Your commission will be processed today. If there are legal objections from the community, tell them to contact the Ministry of Lands. He walked out. Femi sat in the empty conference room with his 3 bullet points and his notebook. The first bullet point said, 11 years without a buyer. The second said, previous surveyor relocated his family. The third, the one he had written last, the one he had been most afraid to say, said simply, the village head says the hill is not empty. He closed the notebook. He processed the commission. He did not sleep well for 3 months. And Chief Adenuga, who had just purchased, for the price of a mistake as he himself had said, a hill that had been waiting 11 years for exactly the kind of man who would not listen, drove back to Lagos to call his architect. The first thing happened 3 weeks later. But in a way, the first thing had already happened in that conference room. The moment a man was told the truth and chose, with complete confidence, not to hear it. Before we continue, please hit that subscribe button and tap the like icon also. Comment below and tell us where you are watching from and what time is it right now in your city. Let's see how far out our story family reaches. To understand what the hill did to Chief Adenuga, you must first understand what Chief Adenuga had done to others. Not out of cruelty. That is the important distinction. Out of certainty. Adewale Adenuga was born in 1958 in Abeokuta, the second son of a court clerk named Emmanuel Adenuga, who believed in 3 things with equal devotion: the Bible, the colonial education system, and the absolute superiority of documented evidence over oral tradition. What is not written, Emmanuel Adenuga used to say, did not happen. Adewale grew up in a home where receipts were filed, letters were kept, and every transaction, however small, produced a paper record. His father did not distrust the world. He simply preferred to engage with the version of it that could be verified. Adewale took this further. He took it to the logical conclusion that his father's generation never quite reached. That if documented evidence was the only reliable reality, then whoever controlled the documents controlled the world. He studied law at the University of Ibadan. He practiced briefly before realizing that the law was more interesting as a tool than as a profession. He moved into property in 1987. The Yoruba Bandita Structural Adjustment Program began making land in Nigeria simultaneously more available and more contested, a combination that rewarded men who moved fast and asked questions later. He moved fast. He asked questions later. Or more accurately, he asked only the questions whose answers did not complicate the transaction. In 32 years of property development, Chief Adewale had acquired land in 11 states. He had built on farmland that communities said belonged to their ancestors. He had developed on floodplains that engineers quietly flagged and then stopped flagging when the money arrived. He had purchased at government valuation, always significantly below market, through relationships with Land Bureau officials whose children's school fees he quietly settled. He had never lost a property. He had also never thought to ask, not once, not seriously, whether acquisition and ownership were the same thing. In Yoruba cosmology, there is a concept, Igbani, the covenant, the agreement made not between men and men, but between men and the forces that existed before men arrived. These covenants are not written in any document the Ministry of Lands would recognize. They are written in the root systems of Iroko trees that are 400 years old, in the specific arrangement of rocks on a hillside that a community has not disturbed in living memory, in the fact that 11 years of marketing could not sell one piece of land to any buyer who came and looked and walked away. Chief Adenuga had not studied Yoruba cosmology at the University of Ibadan. He had studied property law, and property law had one answer to 11 years without a buyer: underpriced asset, motivated seller, distressed market. The land agent Femi had tried, carefully, diplomatically, in the manner of a young man who needed his commission but also did not want whatever was on that hill to follow him home, to convey certain community concerns. Sir, the people of Imesi-Ile, they have some traditional beliefs about the land. Every community has traditional beliefs about land, Chief Adenuga had said without looking up from the survey map. That is why land is cheap when it should be expensive. Next question. Sir, there have been some incidents. Previous surveyors. Femi. Chief Adenuga had looked up then. I've been buying land since before you were born. Every piece of land I have ever acquired came with a story. The people who told the stories are still in their compounds. I am my hotel. Stories are for people who do not act. Femi had stopped talking. He had processed his commission the following week and spent 3 months quietly wondering if he had done something he would carry for a long time. Chief Adenuga had driven back to Lagos and called his architect. What neither of them knew, what no survey coordinate or title document could contain, was this. Oak Agba Hill had been the site of a covenant. Not a recent one, not the kind made in any living person's memory. A covenant made in 1847 between the Imesi-Ile community and Ogun, the Yoruba deity of iron, of war, of the boundary between the human world and what lies beyond it, during the wars that tore through Yoruba land in the decades that followed the collapse of the Oyo Empire. The community had been spared, in exchange for one promise. The hill would remain untouched. No structure, no cultivation, no human hand reshaping what Ogun had claimed. For as long as the Iroko tree at the summit stood, the covenant held. The covenant did not care about the Ogun State Ministry of Lands. It did not care about survey coordinates. It did not care about Chief Adewale Adenuga. But Chief Adewale Adenuga had just bought an excavator, and the excavator had already touched the hill. The first thing was small. That is how it always begins. Small enough to explain. Small enough to file under coincidence, under bad luck, under the ordinary friction of construction in rural Ogun State. Small enough that a man like Chief Adenuga, a man who had built 3 shopping complexes and 2 estate developments, could look at it directly and not see it for what it was. The excavator operator's name was Kehind Adisa. He was 34 years old, from Sagamu, 12 years of heavy equipment operation behind him. He had worked on projects across 5 states. He was the kind of man whose relationship with machinery was so complete and so long that he understood what equipment was going to do before it did it, the way a rider understands a horse. On the morning of the 3rd week, Kehind climbed into the excavator cab at 7 a.m. as usual. He started the engine. He moved the arm toward the section of hillside they were clearing for the foundation. The arm stopped. Not a mechanical stop. Not a hydraulic failure. The diagnostic panel showed no fault. The engine was running cleanly. The controls responded. But the arm, at the precise point where it would have made contact with the hillside, simply stopped moving forward, as if something had taken hold of it. Kahine tried again and again. He climbed out and inspected every component. He called the equipment company in Lagos. A technician drove out from Ibadan the following day, spent 4 hours on the machine, found nothing wrong, drove back. The excavator worked perfectly on every other part of the site. Only the hillside stopped it. Kahine told the site foreman. The site foreman, a practical man from Ondo named Mr. Afolabi, who had been in construction for 25 years and who privately held beliefs that his professional life required him to keep private, listened to this report with a face that gave nothing away. Then he called Chief Adenuga in Lagos. "Sir, we have a situation with the excavator." Chief Adenuga listened. "Then, get another excavator." The second excavator arrived the following Monday. A newer model. Different operator. It approached the hillside and stopped at the same point. The operator, a young man from Abeokuta named Tund, who had never heard of Oak Agba and who had no superstitions about hills, climbed out of the cab shaking. He could not explain what he had felt. He told Mr. Afolabi he had felt the cab temperature drop by what seemed like 20 degrees in the space of 2 seconds at the moment the arm stopped. He told him the instrument panel had flickered. He told him, quietly, carefully, looking at the ground, that he had heard something. "What did you hear?" Mr. Afolabi asked. Tund did not answer immediately. "Metal," he said finally, "like iron being struck. Once, from inside the hill." Mr. Afolabi was quiet for a moment. Then he sent both operators home for the day and called Chief Adenuga again. Chief Adenuga drove out from Lagos the following morning. He stood at the base of the hillside. He looked at the 2 excavators sitting idle. He looked at the hill. He looked at the survey stakes and the clear perimeter and the foundation markings. He picked up a stone. He threw it at the hillside. It hit the hill. It bounced. Nothing happened. "You see," he said to Mr. Afolabi. "A stone. A hill. That is all this is. Get the operators back. If the excavators will not move, we use manual labor. I want foundation work started by Friday." He drove back to Lagos. That night, in his house in Ikoyi, his wife Ronk asleep beside him, the Lagos night traffic audible through the bedroom window. Chief Adenuga woke at exactly 2 a.m. He did not know what woke him. He lay in the dark for a moment. Then he turned on the bedside lamp. On the ceiling of his bedroom, directly above where he had been sleeping, there was a mark, a dark circular stain, approximately the size of a man's palm. It had not been there when he went to sleep. The ceiling was dry. There was no pipe above it. No structural explanation. He looked at it for a long time. Then he turned off the lamp. He told himself it was damp. Old building. Lagos humidity. The kind of thing that happened in houses that needed maintenance. He told himself this with the specific firmness of a man who has built his entire life on the principle that what cannot be documented cannot be real. In the morning, the mark was gone. He did not mention it to Ronk. He did not mention it to anyone. But the manual laborers he sent to the hillside on Friday lasted 4 hours before every one of them walked off the site. 3 of them refused to give any reason. One of them, an older man named Baba who had been doing manual construction work in Ogun State for 40 years, sat down at the base of the hill and looked at Mr. Afolabi with the eyes of someone who has just walked into a room and understood something terrible about it. "This ground," he said slowly, "this ground is not empty." Mr. Afolabi did not ask what he meant. He already knew. The head of village of Imesi-Ile was a man named Chief Adewale Adenuga. He was 83 years old. He had been the Baale, the community patriarch, the keeper of the covenant, the man whose knowledge of Imesi-Ile's history went deeper than any written record, for 27 years. He had known about Chief Bankol's purchase before the ink dried on the title document. He had not tried to stop it, not because he did not care, because he had learned, over 83 years of living at the base of Oak Agba, that there were certain things a person could warn a man about, and certain things that the man had to learn himself. The Baale had given 2 warnings, one to the land agent, one to the Ogun State Ministry of Lands, in a letter submitted through the proper channels, documented and signed and filed, and subsequently lost in the way that letters submitted through proper channels in Nigeria are always lost when their content is inconvenient. He had done what he could do. Now he waited. It was Chief Adenuga's architect who came to him first. The architect's name was Damilola Williams. He was 38 years old, trained at Covenant University, practiced in Lagos. He had driven out to the site 3 times since construction began, and each time had returned to Lagos unsettled in a way he could not explain to his wife and did not try to explain to Chief Adenuga. The 3rd time, he had driven to Imesi-Ile instead of back to Lagos. He sat in the head of village's compound and drank palm wine he had not asked for and would not have refused, and he waited until the old man was ready to speak. The head of village spoke for 2 hours. He spoke in Yoruba, slowly, and Damilola, who had grown up in Surulere and whose Yoruba was functional but not deep, listened with the attention of a man who understood that the language itself was carrying information the translation would not. He told Damilola about 1847, about the wars, the collapse of Oyo, the years when Yoruba communities turned on each other in configurations of alliance and betrayal that are still being untangled by historians, about the army that came to Imesi-Ile in the rainy season of that year, about the decision made by the then head of village and the community elders to go to the hill, to the place where Ogun's presence was strongest, to make an offering, to make a covenant. We said to Ogun, the Baale told Damilola, his voice carrying the specific cadence of a man reciting something he learned before he could fully understand it. Take this hill. Take it completely. Let it be yours. We will not build on it. We will not farm it. We will not disturb what you have placed here. In exchange, protect us. Let the army pass. Let Imesi-Ile survive. The army passed. Imesi-Ile survived. Every village head since 1847 had maintained the covenant. Every community member knew the hill's boundary. Children were taught before they could read. The boundary was not marked by a fence or a sign. It was marked by knowledge passed from parent to child for 172 years, until the knowledge reached the edge of the community and stopped. Because the Ministry of Lands did not know about the covenant. Because the survey team did not know. Because Femi the land agent had been told something was wrong with the hill, but had not been told what specifically, because the specific thing was not the kind of information that fits into a property transaction. What happens, Damilola asked carefully, to someone who breaks the covenant? The village head was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the hill through the gap in his compound gate. The Irako tree at the summit was visible even from here, the way it was always visible, the way the Imesi-Ile people had always oriented themselves. The hill was their compass, their clock, their reminder. Ogun, the village head, said finally, is not a deity who punishes out of anger. He punishes out of principle. He is the god of iron, of boundaries, of the line between what belongs to the human world and what is not. He paused. When a man crosses a boundary that Ogun has drawn, Ogun does not move the boundary. He moves the man back, past where he started, to the beginning. Damilola drove back to Lagos that evening and sat in his car outside his house for 45 minutes before going inside. He called Chief Adenuga. Sir, I need you to hear something. If it is about the hill. Sir, please. Chief Adenuga heard the quality of his architect's voice. Something in it was different, not professional concern, not the discomfort of a man managing a difficult client. Something older than that. He listened. When Damilola finished, there was a long silence. You are telling me, Chief Adenuga said slowly, that I should abandon a property I paid for because of a story from 1847. Sir, I am telling you what the village head told me. The village head is an 83-year-old man in a village compound who has never left Ogun State. Sir, send me the structural report on Monday. We will use dynamite for the hillside if the equipment will not move. I want foundation work by end of month. He ended the call. He sat in his study with the lights on and looked at the wall. The wall where, 3 days ago, he had noticed that a framed photograph of his late father had turned to face backward on its hook. He had straightened it without mentioning it to anyone. He straightened it again now in his memory and decided again that it meant nothing. He sent the dynamite. That is the sentence that the Imesi-Ile people still speak in a specific tone. Not with anger, not with satisfaction, with the tone of people recounting something that confirmed what they already knew, the way you speak about rain that fell exactly when the forecast said it would. He sent the dynamite. Chief Adenuga contracted a civil engineering firm from Lagos, a firm that had done quarry blasting in Abeokuta and foundation work in Abuja, and who were not, their project manager assured him, deterred by difficult terrain. Their name was Apex Civil Works Limited. Their equipment was good. Their team was professional. They arrived on a Monday morning in early August. There were 7 of them. The project manager, whose name was Engineer Biodun Salu, was 45 years old and had supervised 43 blasting operations in his career. He had the energy of a man who had seen enough difficult terrain to find nothing particularly difficult about terrain. He walked the site. He assessed the hillside. He spoke to Mr. Afolabi about the previous equipment failures with the polite skepticism of a professional who has heard such stories before and attributed them to operator error or equipment maintenance. He planted the first charge at 10 a.m. At 10:17 a.m., the detonator failed. Not a mechanical failure of the detonator itself. The detonator was subsequently tested and found to be fully functional. It simply did not fire when the signal was sent. Engr Salu checked the circuit. He replaced the detonator. He sent the signal again. Nothing. He planted a second charge at a different point on the hillside. At 11:04 a.m., same result. At 11:45 a.m., Engr Salu did something he had not done in 43 blasting operations. He stopped. He stood at the base of the hill and looked at it for a long time. Then he called his team together and told them to pack the equipment. When his project manager called Chief Adenuga to report, the conversation was brief. "We cannot complete this job, sir. Cannot or will not." A pause. "Sir, in my professional experience, when a site refuses twice, you do not try a third time. I'm not paying you for your experience with refusing sites. I am paying you to... Sir, with respect, I am returning your deposit minus the mobilization costs. I cannot complete this job." The line went quiet. Then Chief Adenuga said something Engr Salu had not expected from a man of his type. He said, "What did you see?" Another pause. "Sir, I did not see anything." Biodun. "What did you see?" The longest pause. "Sir, when I was standing at the hillside after the second detonator failed, I looked at the Irako tree at the top. And the tree," he stopped. "The tree looked back." Chief Adenuga ended the call. He sat alone in his study. For the first time since the purchase, for the first time since the coins were counted and the document was signed and the excavator was ordered, Chief Adenuga sat with something he did not have a professional category for. Not fear, not yet. Something adjacent to fear. The feeling of a man whose map has just shown a coastline that should not exist. He called his wife. Ronk Adenuga was a woman who had been married to Adewale for 31 years. She was a deeply churched woman, an elder at their Pentecostal church in Lekki, a woman who believed in the power of prayer with the same specificity that her husband believed in the power of title documents. She had not been told about the ceiling stain. She had not been told about the photograph. She had not been told about the excavators or the workers walking off the site. She knew all of it. She had known for 3 weeks. The way women know things in long marriages. Not through information, but through the quality of her husband's presence. The weight of him in a room. The way he held his phone. The specific pattern of his silences. "Well," she said when he called. "Tell me about the hill." He told her everything. She was quiet for a very long time. "You need to go to Imesi-Ile," she said finally. "You need to go and sit with the village head." "Ronk, Whale, listen to me. Everything you have built, the complexes, the hotel, the estates, you built them because you were willing to sit across from difficult men and have honest conversations. This is a difficult conversation. Go and have it." He drove to Imesi-Ile the following morning. He drove himself. No driver, no pa, no entoraga. A 61-year-old man in a gray Agbada in a black Mercedes, alone on the Ogun State Road. The village head received him. They sat in the compound under the mango tree. The village head's wife brought water and kola nut. Chief Adenuga broke the kola nut himself, an act of respect he had not performed in years. The village head spoke. He told Chief Adenuga everything he had told Damilola, but this time he told it differently, not as a warning, as information shared between two men who have both decided to be honest. Chief Adenuga listened. He did not interrupt. He did not check his phone. He did not apply any of the 32 years of acquired professional certainty that had brought him to this compound. He listened the way a man listens when he has run out of alternatives. When the village head finished, Chief Adenuga sat in the compound silence for a long time. "What do I do?" he asked. The village head looked at him. "You have 3 choices," he said. "You leave the hill as you found it. You restore what was disturbed. And you make an offering at the Irako tree. Or you continue. And Ogun continues. And the 3rd choice?" The village head's expression did not change. "You already know the 3rd choice. You have known it since the sealing." Chief Adenuga looked at his hands. The hands that had signed 47 land transactions in 32 years. "If I restore the hill," he said quietly, "what happens to the title document?" The village head looked at him with the specific patience of a man who has waited 83 years to have this conversation and can wait a little longer. "What does a title document mean?" he said gently, to the thing that was here before documents. He did not decide immediately. That is important to say clearly. Chief Adewale Adenuga was not a man who converted. He was not a man who underwent a sudden transformation that erased 32 years of professional philosophy in a single afternoon in a village compound. He drove back to Lagos that evening and sat with what the village head had told him for 11 days. He sat with it the way he had sat with difficult business decisions his whole career, turning it over, examining it from every angle, looking for the version of it that fit inside the world he had always operated in. He could not find that version, because this decision did not fit inside any world he had previously operated in. On the 12th day, he called his lawyer and instructed him to begin the process of surrendering the title document. Not selling the land, not transferring it, surrendering it, returning it to the community of Imesi-Ile through the proper legal channels, with a registered instrument of transfer that cost him the full purchase price plus legal fees and produced nothing in return. His lawyer thought he was ill. His accountant thought he was being coerced. His business partner of 18 years, a man named Chief Obafemi Coker, drove to his house in Ikoyi and sat across from him and asked him directly, "Well, did someone threaten you?" "No," Chief Adenuga said. "Then why?" Chief Adenuga was quiet for a moment. "Because," he said finally, "I bought something that was not for sale, and the price I was going to pay for it was higher than anything I had in my account." Chief Coker looked at him. "What price?" Chief Adenuga looked at the wall of his study. The photograph of his late father hung straight on its hook. It had been hanging straight since the morning after his visit to Imesi-Ile. It had not moved since. "I don't know exactly," he said, "and I decided I did not want to find out." The transfer was completed in October. The Imesi-Ile community received the land back through a formal legal instrument. The bill had accepted it in a brief ceremony in his compound. No fanfare, no press, no social media. The village head's community did not celebrate. They simply restored what had been disturbed. The survey stakes were removed. The construction debris was cleared. A community work party went up the hill and cleaned the area around the Irako tree. They laid fresh palm fronds. They poured libation at the tree's base. The village head performed the restoration ceremony himself. It took 2 hours. When it was done, he stood at the base of the Irako tree and looked at the sky. The sky over Oak Agba that evening was the specific deep blue of the Ogun State dry season, unmarked by cloud, the first stars already visible though the sun had not fully set. The Baale nodded once. He walked back down the hill. Chief Adenuga was not there for the ceremony. He had not been invited and had not asked to attend. He had done what he needed to do from a distance, through legal instruments and transfer fees, in the only language he fully spoke. But the night the ceremony was completed, in his Ikoyi study, working late, the house quiet around him, he felt something. Not a sound, not a mark on the ceiling, not a photograph turning. The opposite of all those things. A quietness. The specific quality of a pressure that has been present for so long you stopped noticing it until it lifted, and in its lifting showed you exactly how heavy it had been. He sat in the quiet for a long time. Then he called Ronk. "It's done," he said. She was quiet for a moment. "How do you feel?" He thought about it honestly. "Like a man," he said slowly, "who has just returned something that was never his, and discovered that he had more without it than he thought he did." Ronk said nothing for a moment. Then, "Your father would have understood that." The photograph on the wall caught the desk lamplight. His father's face, looking outward, as it had always hung, as it was meant to hang. Chief Adewale looked at it for a long time. Then he turned off the desk lamp, and for the first time in 4 months, he slept through the night. There are things in this world that do not have a price. We began there. We return there, because that is the nature of certain truths. They do not move. They wait at the beginning and at the end of every story. And what changes is not the truth, but the person walking toward it. Chief Adewale Adenuga did not lose everything. He lost a title document, a purchase price, several months of professional certainty, and one night's sleep at a time. In exchange, he received something the Ministry of Lands has no instrument to record. He received the specific knowledge of a man who pushed against something ancient and was pushed back. Not destroyed, not broken, simply returned to the correct relationship with the world. Reminded that acquisition and ownership are not the same thing. That the documented world and the real world share a border that property law does not govern. The Irako tree still stands on Oak Agba. The head of Imesi-Ile still sits in his compound under the mango tree. The hill is still called Oak Agba, the Hill of Miracles. It has not been put on the market again. And Chief Adewale, who still owns 3 shopping complexes and 2 estate developments, and a hotel whose name you can read from the expressway, has not bought land since without first asking a question he never used to ask. Not what is the price, but who was here before me, and what did they know that I don't? That question has never cost him a property. It has saved him several. Subscribe to our channel. Turn on notifications. And in the comments, tell us, have you ever ignored a warning that turned out to be true?